Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the premiere July 2016 Celebrity Intensive Series. Please welcome to the stage our host, the president of Premiere, Mr. Michael David.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am so unbelievably excited to introduce our celebrity guest to all of you. She is someone who has been the face of the brand for Disney Channel for so many years. She is such a marvelous talent, and she is so incredibly creative and smart. Many of you may not know that she also produced the show, Jessie. So everyone, if you could please give a great big premiere welcome to Debby Ryan. Great to see you.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me, everyone.
Please have a seat.
I will.
So tell us about how Jessie came to be. I mean, this is like the craziest, greatest show that so many kids have grown up with, and you have been such an amazing role model to a lot of these children. How did the whole genesis of Jessie come to be?
Yeah, so I was 14 years old, and I booked a role on the show Sweet Life. Have you guys seen Sweet Life? Awesome. I like a little bit of talk back, so I don't know. Michael is a very disciplinarian, maybe, but you guys come at me. Feel free to talk with me if I ask you questions. So I booked a show called Sweet Life, did that for a few years, and had so much fun on it, and it broke me. Like, that show built me and taught me everything and made me the most afraid I've ever been and made me the most out of my comfort zone I've ever been, and really, really grew me, and I was forced to learn.
Were you walking on a set of young people that already had a rhythm? You're walking on a set with like the twins, Phil Lewis, right? And so you're having to fit into their rhythm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was that maybe that grew me, and I'd moved around a lot and become a new kid. But walking into a situation where you're playing a character, and a comedy character, and someone that you have to really own and have your voice in and take ownership of, to walk in with that sort of confidence in general, much less to a family that's already been established, it's scary, y'all. It is scary. But I think that sort of thing, in that situation, you realize, like, this is my job. These are my lines. This is my girl. Wardrobe has helped me get dressed. Everyone has done their job. And now I need to do my job. And so the amount of fear, the amount of inexperience, it didn't matter. It was like, all right, let's get this done.
How many years did you do the show?
I did that show for 4 years. So we did 4 seasons of that. We did about 100 and something episodes. Shot a movie for that as well in Vancouver, which came out. I started shadowing directors on that show, got really close with my showrunner, got close with Disney Channel, launched Disney Channel internationally in Turkey and Poland and Singapore and Sydney, Australia, and kind of everywhere in between, and had a really good relationship with them. And then the show ended suddenly, as television is wont to do, and I went into Disney Channel and I said, I don't think I'm done with you guys, and I don't think you're done with me. Wizards just ended, Hannah's gone, like, Demi is moving on to her things, and you guys need something from old generation Disney to kind of anchor you in. And their new programs were so funny, and the new people were so funny, and they were like, all right, let's do something. And they put me with the showrunner of Sweet Life, who I was very close with, obviously, and Pam and I developed this idea of a girl.
That's so crazy that you pitched your show to Disney, and Disney's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think
that's crazy.
I think that if I told you in detail my entire story, there are little moments that you would be like, that's crazy. And I think that that's good. I think that anytime I walked in auditioning for Sweet Life, living in Texas, having just done like an indie film in Louisiana and trying to get all of my homework assignments back to my Texas school. I was on varsity dance team and competition season was coming up, and they were like, we want to fly you out, audition you. I sent in a video audition. They were like, we want to call you back, fly you out, and bring you against the top 2 girls to audition with Phil Lewis, Dylan and Cole Sprouse, and Brenda Song. Terrified.
Were you a self-tape?
I was a self-tape. I sent a self-tape in from Texas.
Wow. Okay.
I sent a self-tape in from Texas, sent a self-tape, or drove then after, literally directly after that self-tape, drove to Louisiana, auditioned for a movie, booked that, shot it, went home, did reshoots.
And you're how
months
old?
later. At this point I was 14, I think it was 13 maybe when I auditioned initially for Sweet Life, and then 14 by the time I screen tested for it. And I had 6 days to move out to LA.
Wow.
They called me, I was back in Texas, and I was like, that was really fun. That was like kind of what I expected of it. I was like, never thought I'd see California. Great, cool. I'm gonna just be doing indie movies until I get through school, and I was gonna be a surgeon, so I was gonna have that put me through medical school, and I was saving all my money, and got out other plans. And so there I was in California. But then when Sweet Life ended, Pam and I, had known that we wanted to establish something, and we had such a funny relationship. And something that I learned a lot through the industry is that you can work with the biggest people in the world, you can work with people who have never done anything, but that connection and that alchemy and what you bring to a writer's script, to, if the lighting director, the director of photography, make sure that you have your light on your face, and if you know how to find that, that's like a really good telling thing. That's the difference between an actress who knows how to coach a role and say lines and knows how to command a role on a set. So I did that, and I worked on all those things, and I sat in the editing room just because I didn't have friends. Like, I wish I could be like, oh, I was really smart and proactive. I just didn't know anyone. I was like, all right, I'll hang out with the editor and the writers, and did. And when I hung out with the writers, I got a taste of their sense of humor. They got a taste of my sense of humor. We started developing this girl who moved around a lot and lived on military bases and was very clumsy and awkward with guys and ended up in an emergency room. All of these things were based on my real life, you should know. True. I should tell you about some of my dates after this. Terrible.
So were you in the casting for the roles that your supporting cast got cast in?
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Tell me about the audition process, because you're like auditioning, say, the future Sky Jackson or the future, Peyton List, and you are responsible for launching them.
Yeah.
You, personally.
Yeah.
Along with Disney Channel and other people, creative people. That's a really tremendous legacy.
It is.
It's relatively fresh, and your journey is so long, but you've accomplished so much in a short period of time.
Yeah, I think that, from the beginning, knowing generally what I wanted as far as the kids that Jessie was taking care of. I knew that I wanted 4 distinct personalities. I wanted people who had, and whether it was culture, whether it's Ravi coming from India and having just been adopted, and we got a chance to really showcase that kind of fresh, intact Indian American culture, which I love. And then, you have talking about adoption and talking about kind of moving and having sibling rivalry.
These are cutting edge themes for Disney Channel,
really
too.
important for me to say. And so when I went into Disney, I was like, I know that you guys have the way that you do things, and I know that you guys have things that you don't want to touch on and that make you really uncomfortable because you're such a big company. And if they say something about adoption and it's inaccurate or insensitive, it's such a bigger ripple. And in the same way that if I hire 4 children that are 9 to 12 or 13 and bring them onto a set where they're going to spend 8 hours for the next 4 years, and that's going to take them all over the world, it's going to take their privacy from them, it's going to put their family in a dynamic that they haven't been in before, I'm also responsible for that. And I'm responsible for the kind of set that they show up and work on every day as preteens and teenagers.
So you're setting an example on set, you're setting an example as a producer. You wore many hats on that show.
Yeah.
Did you ever direct an episode?
I did, yeah. So I started shadowing, and that was so much fun. And just with multi-camera sitcoms, you usually have 1 or 2 house directors that are your main guys. They know the dynamic, they know the chemistry of the people, they know typically that, Sky hasn't thought about finding her camera, just because she hadn't acted before. And so how to kind of adapt to those and meet people where they were at and come up with strengths to kind of meet people at their weaknesses that are also lessons and make the kids and actors better. Don't just deal with the situation and be like, all right, let's just get a face on camera and we'll be fine. But let's teach this actress what she needs to know for the rest of the things. Let's teach this actress how 6 times after saying a line that she would never say in real life, how to still make it sound fresh. And I think it was all things that I learned, things that I wish that someone had taught me, things that I had to kind of walk into and like teach myself.
But you had to have so much patience to do that, because you're talking about young people, right?
Yeah, and animals.
And animals. Tell me what it was like in terms of developing the arc of the show and the years that you spent on that show. Creatively, for you, were you able to tell the story you wanted to tell?
Yeah, I think I absolutely was. I think, and more. I think when you kind of create and build this canvas, and then you have 100 people that each have a job, a career, a field that they've been doing probably since longer than we were alive. Those people are all working to create a thing, and you happen to be the most visible part of that thing. So it's really important to meet those people where they're at, and whether it's the writers really wanting to talk about adoption, wanting to talk about the idea of family being thicker than just blood, and that blood being thicker than water, and friends, and finding your career as a young adult, and finding your talents and your hobbies as kids growing up, and how much makeup to wear when you're 13, and things that I really wanted to address and talk about that I didn't necessarily know going in, but really found. But going in, I knew I wanted the 4 kids. They were amazing. Karin and Cameron, so Luke and Ravi, they came in auditioning actually for the same role, which would then become the Luke role. We had a role named Javier that when Karin came in, we changed to Ravi, and we adapted it around him and his family and their journey, and it was so cool and so honest. And Peyton as well came in. She was supposed to be like a bookish, kind of smart, sarcastic character, and she came in and was just like, hi. So we were like, all right, now we're gonna make Emma. And so we got to really customize around the actresses that we found, and Sky came in, and we had like a 4-year-old come in, and then she was maybe 8 at the time or something. And so we had like stair-steppers, and that was really tricky because, you know, you have Sky who's sassy and funny and has that personality of Zuri, and then you have the technical thing of how do we make it so that an 8-year-old can work comfortably on a set around 100 adults, and if we have a 4-year-old, is it easier to just kind of have them sitting on couches in scenes until they grow up, and then if they grow up when they're 6, what if they don't want to do this? I mean, there's so many factors going into casting, right? And as an actor, I went in on the other side of that table hundreds and thousands of times in the last 10 years or whatever, and I know what I think that they're looking for. And I think you're probably always wrong. I think sometimes you walk in and the director's like, I wanted this role and I'm changing it for this. Or you walk in and they're like, oh, I like this girl, but she reminds me of a girl I dated in high school who wasn't nice to me. And so
how do you find the individual character moments for each of the different characters, your character and the ensemble, to find maybe a catchphrase or to find the dialogue and all of it? That's really hard to do. It's hard to put the personality into the character. How long did that take you guys?
Yeah, well, what's tricky about Jessie was that Disney had never done a show without a pilot before. So presumably you guys know what a pilot is. They'll shoot an episode of a show, they'll workshop it, they'll test it around, see what people think, maybe replace some of the cast or change some of the characters, find the director, find the voice, add a set, add whatever they need that they felt like was missing, and then kind of take 2, do it for real. We didn't have that. It was the end of March, and Gary Marsh, who's the president of Disney Channel, said to me, we love the idea of the show, Jessie. We're gonna get into casting and bring some kids in at the end of April in like a month, and then you guys are on in the fall. We're shooting at the end of May. And I was like, okay. And I feel like we had, I mean, initially from the jump, when we got the 4 kids, I called them each individually and I was like, hi, I haven't seen you since the audition. I just wanted you to know, like, you booked the role. I'm sure you've heard from your representatives. If there's anything that you need, please call me. This is my cell number. If you want to talk, or if you are confused or scared, or we want to go to Disneyland, like, let me know. We're establishing a family. What's really tricky is that Jessie was coming into this dynamic of the Ross family. Who here has seen Jessie? Ted. Great. Thanks. Well, so Jessie, as you guys know, is coming into the Ross family, which is a family. They have their inside jokes. They have their ways of making fun of each other. And these are 4 kids that, until the audition waiting room, had never met. and a month later needed to convince all of Disney Channel that they were family. And so to establish that, which then comes with the bullying, the catchphrases, the interactions, things like that, it's just time together. It's time with the writers. I would bring the writers down. We would all sit. I took the kids to Disneyland before we started shooting, and we all
Did you
got to
ever
know each
have a
other.
situation where you were at a table read at any point in the series and you're like, it's just not happening?
Yeah. But I think that I have to look at it scene by scene. My job, even when I was producing, when I was directing, or even just as the lead of a show, my job is not to decide whether or not a storyline is funny or interesting. If there are things that I think are like, I don't think this is appropriate. I think that we want to see that Emma's, dating, but I don't like this unhealthy behavior that kind of shows itself in the script. I don't think that points to a good thing, and maybe we should dovetail it and tie and talk about how it's too soon for you to be wearing mini skirts and things like that. Those things that really I cared about, we could put in and infuse. But from the jump, if that heartbeat is not there, there's not a lot for a director or a producer or even the lead actress to work with. But I think that with every second that I spent with our crew, I had so much more faith in the fact that everyone wanted this to work. Everyone wanted the show to work. The writers wanted to write funny and meaningful and interesting dialogue. They wanted to come up with things that people hadn't seen before.
Were you able to bring some of the Sweet Life crew to your show?
Yeah, which was so amazing because, again, I moved here with 6 days. The people that I met on Sweet Life were the only people I knew in California, really. And so brought some of them in, took meetings and hired a couple other people. We had done a crossover from Sweet Life with Wizards of Waverly Place. So I got to know the Wizards crew pretty well, and I would walk over, we filmed on the same lot, and I would walk over on lunches and hang out with those guys. And so I also got to poach some of that crew, which was cool because when Wizards ended, they didn't have a job. And then when Sweet Life ended, some of them went and found other jobs.
What a great, talented pool of people that you had at your disposal. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, what about a typical week? Because I'm sure that a lot of the parents and kids out here would love to know what the process is of shooting during the week, like from a table read to shooting.
Yeah. So we shot Monday to Friday. Monday morning, we come in, the kids do school. I come into my producer meetings. I, meet with the different departments of how, there's a scene where this person's climbing up an elevator shaft. So stunts needs to talk about how we're going to do that in a safe way. Cameras needs to talk about how we're going to shoot that and get eyes on it. And the editor needs to be there to know exactly what footage he needs to work with once he gets there. But everything from set deck to being like, the inside of the elevator walls are too clean because you just built the inside of an elevator and it's brand new. But theoretically, this is an old elevator in an old New York building. So we need to dirty that up. And wardrobe needs to make sure I'm in something that I can climb in, which is always heels. They're always putting me in heels. They're like, we'll have Debbie with the thicker heels, which was very considerate of them. And so I kind of would meet with all the different departments. And then afterwards, we would have our table read. The cast comes in, we go all the way through it. The cast leaves, goes to lunch or back to school. Then we go over all of our notes. This is the point where the network, which is Disney Channel, comes in and weighs in what they think. The production team comes in and weighs what they think.
Are you
the
in
writers.
full costume and makeup?
We're not.
Okay.
No. We're in sweatpants. By Monday, your girl hasn't touched makeup in 3 days. We shoot Thursdays and Fridays, and 12 hours of hot lights and piled on makeup, nothing makes you want a naked face more than just more baking in the hot lights. So yeah, everyone's just but what I'll say, and I'm glad you asked that question, is that a table read is to be treated as a full performance. So if there's a scene where Jessie's screaming, if there's a scene where someone jumps up, giving the motion and yelling and raising your voice only helps. This is the time that the writers get to hear the jokes that they've written for your voice, in your voice, see the guest stars, see what's working on its feet. And if we don't give them the most accurate portrayal of what it's going to be like on the day, then they can't make it as good as they need it to make. All the other departments don't exactly know what we're working on. So Mondays are really, really important. So After table read, we go to lunch, and then we start to work through some of it. It's just broad strokes. So if there's a couple really tricky scenes, or maybe the set guys are still building the set, but we have the living room, which is always there. So we'll run everything that goes in the living room. We'll run the kitchen scenes, breakfast and stuff. Jessie's always like taking this out of the fridge and pouring this here and putting this away. And it's something that I've done to make sure that it doesn't feel like three people are sitting and having a conversation. It's just kind of like, okay, we get ready, we talk, we have breakfast. And so we can kind of get the choreography in our bodies and really get the blocking loosely done. Tuesday, Monday night, everyone has gone home and made their notes. They've sent in their notes, hopefully by like 9 or 10 p.m., sometimes 3 a.m. And we come in the next day and we put the entire script on its feet with all of the changes. We run through it. Everyone's holding their scripts. So no one needs to be memorized. No one's expected to be memorized by this point. In fact, you're encouraged to go by script and give it as word perfect as possible. By the end of that day, we take a lunch, the kids clock out more school. By the end of that day, we do a run-through, and this run-through is just for production. So Tuesdays are our more quiet days. Tuesday, we can kind of like do all of the things we need to do without the eagle eyes of the big wigs and the suits looking at us. We put it up on our feet, we find little moments, we find little jokes. And Tuesdays are a really good day for us to find little catchphrases and little interactions. There's a thing where every time Luke hit on Jessie, I would just grab him by the head, turn him around, and push him. And that just happened because like Cameron and I would just mess around and I'd be like, hey, get out of here. And so that sort of thing comes about on a Tuesday. You find those little moments. You do a run through for all of production. The writers, the costume people come down, the teachers who are also the welfare workers make sure that the kids are doing safe things and et cetera. We don't have any animals. If we have Mr. Kipling in the episode, we don't have any animals or anything the second day. We work with like a stuffed imitation. And then the director gets to see it all put together like a play. The writers get to see it all put together like a play. We get to workshop and find little funny moments and add little niches so that by Wednesday, when our Tuesday night draft comes in, Wednesday, when we come and put it on its feet, everything's laid out and we just need to put in those new little moments that didn't work. So Tuesday after the run through, I would go into the notes meetings, hear all the notes, talk about certain things, say, okay, I know this guest star hasn't been with us before and they were struggling, but I really feel like they're gonna get this. Or they really shine when they're playing ditzy or funny, but the kind of sharper moments are not there, like their signature, or vice versa. You know, they're really good at physical comedy, but dialogue they have a problem with. That way the writers can go and take that information from the director, from the producers, from the people that have been on the stage and be like, all right, let's incorporate this and tailor this. With guest stars, with people who we don't always see, it's really important to have your eyes open and look at that, because Sky Jackson, who has played Zuri for 3 years, could all of a sudden have a scene with someone who she's never had a scene with before, that Zuri is supposed to have known for years, and they could feel like strangers. It's a really important thing to notice on a Tuesday and be able to work and overcome and workshop out. Wednesday, we come in, put it all on its feet again. It's new, we spit shine it, we work out those little moments. And then we do our, we have a lunch, the kids have done school whenever we're not in scenes. What you'll notice is that it's very rare that all 4 kids are in the same scene. And it's because we usually have an A story and a B story. And the A story is something like, Jessie's helping one of them through a major problem, and they're really excited about this, and then Jessie gets a phone call about something that the other kids are doing. That's the B story. And while the B story kids are shooting their scenes, A story kids are in school, and vice versa. That way we can kind of really keep everything moving. People that don't like one character and really relate to another character always have something to kind of look forward to. By the end of Wednesday night, that note session is crucial, because that's us locking in the closest thing we have to a shooting draft. So Wednesday night, everyone gives their notes. We see what hasn't worked all week, what we thought we had faith in, what maybe isn't gonna work. And we also find cool little inside jokes and moments and things by that point. If it's a new director, usually by Wednesday, we know what to kind of expect. We know if he's really good with the crew, but not great with kids. We know that he's really good with actors, but maybe not with cameras. And so the camera coordinator will step up a little bit more. So Wednesday is when all of the other people who might not be there on a Tuesday making the actual practical things happen. The suits come, we have Disney Channel coming in, making sure we're not, making inappropriate jokes or hurting anyone or whatever. And also that it's kind of going, they'll say things like, we just had an episode of a different show where a similar joke was made. It's nothing that any one of the Jessie writers would have thought about or known, but it's a really good thing that Disney's in there to kind of show us that we're a part of a bigger thing. And so by Wednesday night, we all get our draft. Thursday morning, it's on. Thursday morning we come in, the lights are up, the cameras have been there, the set guys have been putting final touches, painting sets. While we're filming, they're usually building another set somewhere else. And by the time Thursday morning comes around, you are memorized, you are locked in. We know that you've had a new, different script every day for the last 3 days.
Have you ever had a situation where you're locked in on Thursday and someone doesn't know their lines?
Oh, yeah. Oh, every Thursday.
And then it's a nightmare.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And I think that that's like very indicative of like, do you care? Do you want to be here? Do you just like having your hair and makeup done, or do you like doing this? And that goes for guest stars. That goes for 3 years into the show. You still haven't memorized your lines by Thursday? I'm not going to be able to, as an actor and as a producer, go and vouch for you and say, oh yeah, this is an actress who really takes her things seriously and she really because that's what you can do. You can't control what happens when you get onto that set. If they say, oh, hold on, change this, grab this prop, and then here's this new line, they bring in a writer and they say, okay, memorize these new 3 pages of dialogue. Here, we wrote it out for you. No, keep the cameras rolling, we're fine. All right, we have to be out by lunch. We have 10 minutes, and then you need to get 3 hours of school afterwards, and then you have to be out by 4 p.m. Do you have this memorized? All right, great. You have your prop, you know where you're going? All right, make sure you walk to the fridge now after this line instead of the counter. Great, and action. That's what you need to do Thursday. So if you don't come in knowing your lines, you're not giving yourself a lot of advantage. And you're also not doing a respectful job for the 100 people that have done their job so that you can do your job, right?
So do you live tape in front of an audience?
Fridays.
Okay.
So Fridays we come in a little bit later. We'll pre-shoot in the morning. So we'll do what we did all day Thursday, shoot a couple things. Thursday night, the editor has gone down, taken a usable take for each scene. We call them hero takes, right? So on a Thursday and on Friday mornings, anytime we're pre-taping, we always need one hero take where everyone is on it. We got it from the beginning to the end. The jokes are all flying. The pace is right. If someone messes something up and we only have time for one hero take, we pause, we go back a little bit, and then the editor can kind of do a little bit of magic by Friday night. Friday, we break for lunch. They load in the audience. We get all ready. They play the theme song, they call us out. We should say hi to everyone, shake hands, kiss babies, and then we play the ones that we had pre-shot. So the cold open, which is the first scene in any show, where it's like, oh, 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 and then you see the first scene. That's the cold open. So the cold open is a thing that sometimes we shoot it live in front of the audience. We don't give them any warning. We're like, this is where you are, let's go. Sometimes we play it for them. And they'll watch that. They'll watch maybe the second scene if that's been pre-taped too. And then they divert their attention over to where we have just gotten ready. The lights are up. We've already rehearsed that morning. And our first take is a shootable take. Hopefully we take 3, come in, change a line, add this, mess with this, tailor it a little bit, get 2 more takes, and we're moving on. If someone needs to change, they're running back, they're changing. People are ready, dressed for them in their room. They're doing that thing. We have someone hosting. I'll go up and ask questions and talk with the audience a little bit if I have a second. And then we come back out, all the cameras have moved, and we're in the next scene, and we're doing it in order. So sometimes we'll have scenes in the park, and in between every living room is a park scene. Say if the living room is the A story, and the park is the B story. We can't move the cameras from the living room to the park, to the living room to the park, to the living room to the park all Friday. So we'll shoot all the park things that the audience can't see as much, and then we'll do a scene, play a scene, do a scene, play a scene, all the way through until they see pretty accurately what it's gonna look like. And the fun part for the audience is that typically, once they go home and watch that episode 6 months later, they see lines that didn't exist until the third take. They see lines that they were there for the conception of. They see lines and they're like, oh my gosh, Debbie couldn't say that word for the life of her. She messed it up 5 times in a row. And then they can kind of know those little moments about shooting things live, which I love. It gives us a different energy. It gives us a hype. It lets us know if the jokes are working, if the dynamic is working. And that rhythm that sitcom rhythm of like joke, setup, joke, setup, that sort of thing can really start to play in a way that doesn't feel like
What about the role
dialogue.
model piece? Because you're meeting these children who, like similar to today, you've got these kids who've been watching you for years. You being a role model is a really big responsibility.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing. I mean, Jessie was on for 4 seasons as well?
Yeah.
So you spent 8 years on a Disney Channel show.
Yeah.
So that is a generation.
Yeah, it's a generation. And I think when I started, I watched Lizzie McGuire, and Hannah was in its first season. And that was pretty much it as far as being able to talk to celebrities. You couldn't tweet
But
Hillary
also
Duff.
a female
Yeah.
celebrity, because it wasn't until your show really kind of broke where you've got other women on Disney Channel who are able to have a show as a lead.
Yeah, and walking into that and saying, I'm going to host this, I'm going to be the center of this at 18 years old on a kids network, it was really scary. And they took a chance on me, and I then saw it as my responsibility to do that justice and to make that work. And that for every person who had taken a chance on me and that I had been like, give me a shot, let me do this. And if you still hate me, and if you still don't like it, and if you still don't believe in it, no harm, no foul.
Well,
but I can guarantee that it's gonna work.
I think you're successful because you're just honest.
Yeah, I think that I've
You're very
learned
direct and honest,
I'm a
and I think
Texan.
people really appreciate that.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you lived in different parts of the world. I know that everyone would love to know the different areas of the world that you've lived in.
Yeah, I've lived in Germany when I was 7, and we traveled all around Europe. I was born in Alabama. I lived in Killeen, Texas for a bit, and then I lived in Fort Worth, Texas. I lived in Louisiana filming a thing, Vancouver for a bit, and then I've been in LA for 8 years. So
That's awesome.
yeah, or 9 years, or whatever, since 2008. But yeah, the role model aspect, I think, is something that I think a lot about, and it's something that when I was 12 and I was begging my parents to let me do this, I wasn't like, I want people to come up to me and ask me what to do in a breakup and what to do if they feel like their parents don't understand them. I didn't have those answers. I barely have half of those answers now, but I think I've given myself a license to take it very seriously, and if I'm going to find things by process of elimination, if I'm gonna make a mistake or say something kind of dumb or ignorant or whatever, I just have to know that it's my license and my right to do that as a teenager, but it's also my job, because I've taken this on, and I have, for the last 8 years, looked a different kid in the eye every single day and been like, thank you so much for watching my show. Like, that's so cool that you watched that and stopped me here and mentioned this and tweeted me. And looking people in the eyes and knowing who you're doing it for keeps you out of a lot of trouble, or at least it keeps you, like, if you're figuring your things out and you're depressed and you're confused and your family's going through a hard thing, I know that it's very important for me to not tell people, like you guys, like, all right, figure it out, go cry for 5 days straight and go. Like, I can't tell you how to emotionally handle your things. But what I can say is that it's very, very important for, if you're working those things out, first of all, 95% of the time, your parents are on your side. They don't want you to not have fun. They don't want you to not do what you want to do. They're probably just right because they've been through it and they've done it. Also, if they're afraid, it's probably because they've seen the world. So, like, if they're afraid of you going into a situation, it's about that. It's about, like, maybe they know a little bit more. And so while we know what our world is, and we know, like, what we think and what we feel, the only people that have seen you through your entire development and have no other license for you to be successful other than their hearts being so proud that you fulfilled something they fought for you, it's them. So listen to them and trust them. And I would say that's whether or not they were here. True. It's true.
Do you have a defining moment for you that you knew in your mind, I want to be a performer. It was like a defining moment for you. Do you have something like that?
Yeah. I was 8 years old. We moved to Germany, and I was in German public school with my older brother, and I didn't speak German, so that was a struggle. And I learned German, and there was one place on the American base that was a theater. It was a playhouse, and they did plays, and all the cast were adults, but they needed like a kid to play the kid role. And I went and I auditioned, and this is a very fun and interesting part of my story that I have not gotten to yet. Until I was like double digits, I couldn't say my R's, so I was like Deborah Wyan, and like I couldn't, like I would like lisp a little bit. I was very like stuttery. I hid behind my mom's skirt. I was very, very shy, and I'm still a very introverted person. If I don't have my time alone, I'm a monster. I just need to be alone. Sometimes I'm like, I go home alone, and I'm like, okay, all right, I'm good, I got this. So I spent a little bit of time alone, like on the way to the audition or whatever, and I'm with my mom. We go, and I'm hiding in the wings, like waiting, and I go out, and I audition, and it was just like, this audition is my 45 seconds to play make-believe and to be someone else, but with my voice. And I don't think I knew, I wasn't like that woke yet, but I think I knew that it was like something that I needed to do, and I got to create built on what I thought was funny and smart and interesting and right. Not because like someone said this, it wasn't a worksheet at school, it wasn't, something you needed to take home and return. It was like, all right, how do you want to do this? What do you think is important?
Was this your first moment where you felt like, I own this? Like, this is not somebody else's thing.
Yeah.
This is my thing. Like,
hands down.
I own this.
Hands down.
Okay.
And for being a shy kid, who, wrapped myself in the theater curtains, like all the way into the audition, and then went on stage, it was my moment. Nothing had ever felt as much like mine before, and it felt weird. There's like a weird guilt that comes with owning your space, almost. If you, especially I think maybe with women, people are like, well, you can't be a lead, or you can't be an actor, or you can't be whatever, like you're a girl. It's like, yeah, I'm a girl and this is mine. Watch this. And I think that sort of empowerment happened, and I ran back afterwards, and I like hid back in the curtains, and I was like, that was dope. Like, that was awesome. That is what I want to live in. And everything, doing my homework in the car all the way there, and getting extra sleep the night before and not seeing my friends, it was all worth it, because that moment I felt so alive and I felt so empowered, and I felt also like I was a part of something that was so much bigger. I think that if you ever want to get into acting because you want to be the biggest thing in your own immediate circumstance, you're getting into the wrong job. I think that like being a movie star or being a celebrity or like a YouTuber or something, and you want to be like the face of something, that's a different desire than wanting to be an actor. When you're an actor, you are the face, or one of the faces, of so many other factors that you have the license to kind of marry. It's like 1,000 different plugs all come into one area, and you have to see which one goes where, and you put them all together in a way that you like, to where like this entire house lights up. But it's not about you. It's never about you. Being a celebrity, being an actor, being anything, it's never about you. And I think that the more that you realize that, the better you can own your space. Because you don't have to own the entire show. I didn't own Jessie. I'm not the reason that Karin and Cameron were funny. I'm not the reason that the writers were great and the makeup was interesting. I had opinions on those. I got to shape those. I feel very blessed because I worked with very talented people who had ideas and also were very open to bringing other people's ideas to life. But at no point was I all of Jessie. Jessie was a very, very cool collaboration that I got to be the anchor of.
Guys, let's thank Debby Ryan for being here today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
You shared some really terrific stuff. Thank you for doing that.
Of course.
Guys, what we're going to do now is Drew is going to work with Debby and the performers individually. And thank you, guys, and thank you, Debby.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Break a leg, guys.
Right this way.
Thank you, Debbie and Michael. At this time, participants,